Okay. Retrieving faction. White Lotus. Cool. So, I am back with another video. Another Mortal Kombat video. Because there's another topic of discussion that I think is really important to get out. And there's no inherent proof of this, but I do think that it's important to bring up whether or not it's true, because there seems to be a pattern. Now, I could talk about the story's faults for literal hours. But actually, what I'm here to talk about, not about its faults specifically, or not about how the writing is done necessarily, but I'm of the belief that NRS, or like whoever is like currently in charge at that current moment, tends to like write the story in a way that's spiteful to the original, to the latest creator. And this could even extend to before NRS, to in the Midway era, but if there's anything that has not as much merit to it, that's probably reaching, it is within the case of John Tobias and John Vogel, because at least in Deadly Alliance, they practically just brushed off everything that was in MK4. And I kind of always assumed that it was more out of respect, like Vogel didn't want to follow up on a story that wasn't his, and that could still be the case, in all honesty. It's one of those things where, again, I don't know how much that holds up. And I also don't want to imply that they like hold grudges or anything, especially like in the case of Ed Boon and Tobias. If you put them in a room now, they're not going to get into a shouting match or anything. Also, if anyone is remotely interested in my gameplay and notice that it's kind of sucking, I've not played in a hot minute, and I'm more or less just focused on the actual topic. But yeah, Tobias and Vogel, maybe not. But then you get to the actual NRS era, where again, I don't know how much like validity this has, but MK9, then, you know, now that it has a new writer, it goes and completely retcons the 3D era, and only mentions Armageddon by name, despite the plot really having nothing to do with Armageddon. Like, they're talking about their own version, practically. And then we move forward and we get to, you know, 9 happens, and then we get to X, and then Brian Chard leaves. And I actually think, for as dumb as 9 was set up, and I don't know who to blame there, I don't think it's particularly anybody's fault. But I think they really... It's no coincidence that they really ruined X's setup for 11 by just flat out erasing the possibility. And, you know, Kittleston says, well, we try to not be predictable and subvert expectations. I really have to question that, because while I don't think that he's lying necessarily, it's almost like, why do you set up the games then? Why do you set up stuff for the sequel if you're explicitly not going to follow up on it in the way that you promised? Like, at the very least, 9 set up Shinnok as the final boss of MKX, and in MKX, that's what we got. We got a little less of MK4 than most people expected, but it didn't really promise MK4. And I feel like if there's any example of setting up expectations that can then still be subverted, 9 to X was a perfect example of that, in my opinion. But then 11 erases it. And you have the whole thing where you have Dominic Ciancianciolo, or Dominic Cianciolo, I'm sorry, I'm butchering his name, but Dom. He is now the head writer because Kittleston is gone, and he wrote the comics and co-wrote 11. And the very first thing that happens, or a couple of things that happen as soon as he's gone, you have you have him, you have Dom going online and saying the comics aren't canon, despite X and 11 both saying that they were quite nicely. There were a few... Oh, I'm sorry. There were a few contradictions here and there, but for the most part, it lined up. But yeah, as soon as Sean is gone, comics aren't canon anymore. And then there's the thing of... this might not be as relevant to that, you know, in that this is specifically trying to spite him. But then you have Dom, who is the first person so far. And keep in mind, I'm pretty sure the whole Titans thing was his idea. So he comes up with the Titans and then says they're above the one being. And then Kittleston tells them he's wrong. Now that could just be Dom being dumb or asserting his authority. But it doesn't look good because now he's gonna be the head writer of MK12. And it's not good as a whole if this theory is true, because if you just keep writing over the last person's story and making it not matter, then eventually the whole series isn't gonna matter. And I argue we're already at that point. I mean, we're at reboot 2 right now, guys. So thanks for listening, and I'll see y'all again whenever I find something else to ramble about.